in live fra poco. Controllo sia questo.
Devi cancellare tutto e metti su.
Che palle. Ok, mettete il link nuovo. Avvisate tutti.
Avvisate tutti.
Togliete l'audio, please.
Non dire cambiato. Di live.
È belle cose che ci fa Google. Ci fa gli scherzi.
Sul tuo forse l'avete condiviso?
Siamo in live.
Ma siamo già in live, quindi?
Sì, siamo in live, potete parlare. Vi ho messo live perché altrimenti non andava.
Ok, allora smettiamo di properare, di dire cose fuori luogo. Adesso finiamo di avvertire tutti che abbiamo cambiato indirizzo,
Lui è però uno spettatore attuale.
Che penso sia uno di noi, tipo.
C'è già Gio.
Ah.
Hey there, guys.
Ciao.
How are you? Can you see me okay?
Yes, okay.
Oh, right.
Last 2 minutes.
Last 2 minutes have been hectic.
Okay, just to say something. We are live, but the discussion will be a mix between Italian and English because a lot of our readers just speak only English, just speak only Italian. So we will try to switch and translate question and answer every time that we have something. Okay, we have some problem with the Google Hangouts, so we have to wait a little bit because all the people are in the whole channel, so we have to change the link. Sorry for this little problem, but I don't know why Hangouts decided to make me disappear the button for the live, and so I cannot start the live.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Okay, in Facebook. Okay, they are going slowly, but there is some audience. None went away.
Vado a chiudere delle luci. Intanto salutiamo gli spettatori italiani, anche Giulia Narchi c'è, Ilaria Gelli, Max Wright, ciao a tutti quelli che ci hanno seguito, c'è stato un contrattempo con il link, ci siamo trasferiti qui su Hangout, e quindi sì, su questo indirizzo YouTube, quindi speriamo che ci raggiungano. No, non sarà tutta in inglese, Davide speak English, but...
Sì, cercherò di tradurre qualcosina. I will try to translate some, so in this way you can interact with John, so all the people can interact with John. This is the common problem for Italy. Nobody speaks English, so... But this is a very good opportunity because in this way they can interact with the Indiegogo, because usually it's complicated for Italy, for creators to understand crowdfunding, and so it's very important.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I love interacting with people. I unfortunately never learned Italian, though. I'm still trying to learn Greek.
you can start if you. One day, I wrote you by mail that if we will be able one day, I would be happy to invite you here in Italy to have a discussion in a live event.
I will be there in a second, yes. And I will learn Italian just for that.
Yes, of course. Okay, I think that we can start. I suppose that the first step should be to make John introduce himself. And because nobody knows John, but it's important to know who he is and what he is doing in Indiegogo.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
John, let's start.
Sure. So I'm a writer, creator, filmmaker as well. So I've done all of these creative things. I still do. I am Indiegogo's film campaign strategist. And film is now kind of turning into film and creative. So we're talking with comic book. I get to work with comic book creators. I get to work with musicians a little bit more, but as long as it's all arts, I kind of work with the campaigners as much as I can. My job is basically to give advice, let them know how their campaign looks, what they can do, help them strategize to make sure the campaign is successful or as successful as possible. And yeah, that's basically what I do every day. And then, yeah, I probably work with, in a day, I look at about 10 to 15 campaigns in-depthly, at the same time as, kind of continuing to build my personal brand as well, because I also wrote a book on crowdfunding for filmmakers. That's what it's called, actually. So it's, and that got me into this whole, that got me to Indiegogo, and that got me doing this. So a lot of people know me because of the hats that I wear.
Yes, it's very curious. It's very nice.
Well, it's good because when I go to events, I'm the easy to recognize one. It's like, oh, that's the Indiegogo guy. It's like, yep, the hat.
Okay, let me translate something to the audience. Ok, John è responsabile di Indiegogo per quello che riguarda i film, ma non soltanto nei film, perché lavora anche con i fumetti, altro tipo di teatro e tante altre attività creative. Lui stesso è un filmmaker, ha fatto anche dei fumetti, lavora quotidianamente con il team di Indiegogo e con altri team. Praticamente, in poche parole, ogni giorno lui si ritrova davanti in contatto con circa 10-15 campagne al giorno, quindi questo gli ha creato una grossa notorietà. Inoltre lui è famoso per il suo cappello, questo lo identifica come l'uomo con il cappello. In Italian, hat is cappello. So.
I think I understood that one. That was good.
So you know something. Okay.
Oh, tiny bit.
So,
I watch a lot of Fellini, so.
Yeah, Fellini is very nice. I mean, you are a filmmaker, so I mean, it's basics.
Si vede che è esperto.
Okay, let's start with some question. Emanuele, se avete domande.
Intanto inizia tu, poi casomai.
Okay, I start with the question. Commonly, one of the problems here in Italy is to explain what is crowdfunding. I mean, a lot of time, all the people say, okay, you're asking me money, but money for nothing. The reality is completely different. So I would like to know the opinion of a person that works in Indiegogo. What is for you crowdfunding?
Great question. I love it. So for me, crowdfunding this is going to sound very strange. Crowdfunding is not asking someone for money. Now, in America, that's a little more easily, that people can wrap their heads around that easily. In a lot of other parts of the world that I've spoken at, it's harder to, because it is asking for money. Let's be honest, But what I look at it is, it's really me bringing you into the world of my movie, or my comic book, or my food restaurant, or whatever I want to fund with the person's help. The idea that it's something for nothing. I'm going to give you money, but I get nothing in return. It's an understandable mindset because most people don't understand the idea of what a reward is or a perk. But once you say that it's kind of like, it's not a donation. That's the one thing that crowdfunding isn't, because a donation is, here's $10,000, you can have it. I don't need anything except, I don't even need a thank you. But the reality is, no, you are getting something. You're getting items, you're getting experiences, or you're getting a personal connection to a person's movie. You're helping someone bring something to life that they would not be able to do if it wasn't for you. To me, that's the creational process right there. The beauty of crowdfunding and the thing that makes it different is, instead of going to those investors to get money, instead of going to the rich uncle who has money, instead of going to these, other sources, you get to go to the audience. And that's something, I call it a privilege, because I get to bring my audience into my film and have them a part of what I'm doing. And it's just a beautiful privilege.
Okay, I try to translate something very fast.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, there is someone with the video and the audio, maybe there's some problem. Ok, John ha spiegato un po' che cos'è per lui il crowdfunding. La prima cosa che ha detto è stata: il crowdfunding non significa fare una donazione. Lui stesso ha detto che il crowdfunding è un processo dove negli Stati Uniti è abbastanza comune, dove tipicamente le persone contribuiscono alla creazione di un'idea e questa idea poi viene portata al pubblico. We have some kind of echo. I don't know if it's John or Manuelinda.
Cosa c'è?
C'è un rimbombo, un eco.
Ah no, noi non abbiamo.
Ma forse è per quello, Manu. Prova a chiudere un attimo il microfono.
Come ti senti?
Adesso mi sento meglio. Ora mi sento meglio. Ok, sorry John, but there was some echo.
Oh no,
e quindi ha spiegato brevemente che è un grande privilegio riuscire a coinvolgere le persone nella propria creazione, perché dà la possibilità, proprio un atto creativo comune, che non è più chiedere i soldi a chi ha i soldi, per esempio lo zio o che ne so, altre persone, ma bensì un atto proprio creativo a 360. Ok, we have also...
di Max che dice... Ah, scusa, sta finendo?
No, vai.
C'è una domanda di Max che dice: which are the countries with a lot of comic books crowdfunding starting up? Quali sono gli stati con più startup di comic book, insomma?
They want to know what countries. I mean, you understood.
Oh, a little bit, yeah. It was cracking a little bit because I was trying to.
Okay, I can repeat if you want. There was a person in our audience that asked what are the countries where there are more comic book projects in crowdfunding.
Oh, it's a great question. Actually, I'm going to look up some of those because there's a couple that are on the top of my head, but I want to make sure I get them right. So give me 1 second. I know that, I mean, the U.S., the U.S. is where crowdfunding was, born. It's a very American. I mean, that's not fair to say because, I mean, the first crowdfunding was like done in Ireland and all over the world. Just the idea of lending small amounts of money or giving small amounts of money. But a lot of them are in the United States for comic books. If I take a look, and I actually ran my own comic book campaign for one of my projects very recently too. So I know there's a lot of us in the States. I mean, I'm just scanning. I'm just scanning right now.
Yes, don't worry.
It is mostly, it's a lot of U.S. some of the top campaigns have been, because I remember the Red Tail's Dream was a very, very large campaign, and that was in, I want to say Sweden. I think it's Sweden.
Yes, Sweden, Sweden.
Yep. So I mean, it's kind of like, you know, and those are the two campaigns that those folks ran were definitely big, you know, very big campaigns. But the bulk of them are, you know, in the States. From what I'm seeing, based on just looking at some of these, some of the titles that are here.
Between the most funded campaign in comics, there is also in Lumina.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it feels nice.
This is a good result for us. Our first book was published thanks to this campaign, so we are very happy about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Rispondiamo a Max in italiano, traduzione.
Praticamente
Perché ha detto la Svezia.
no, praticamente ha detto che il paese dove ci sono più crowdfunding di fumetto è sicuramente gli Stati Uniti, perché dove è nato il crowdfunding, se uno guarda velocemente tutte le campagne si accorge che gli Stati Uniti sono prevalenti, però se uno va a vedere anche le campagne più finanziate, e anche Red Tails, a lui lo sa l'inglese, quindi, però lo traduciamo per gli altri, Max. Red Tails per esempio viene dalla Svezia, quindi principalmente Stati Uniti, ma poi c'è tutto il resto.
Anche Ilaria ha fatto una domanda, scusa, qual è la parte più difficile secondo lui di un crowdfunding?
Okay, what is the part most difficult for a crowdfunding? I mean, what is the challenge, the real challenge?
Oh, great. Yeah, there's a lot.
It's very complicated, I know.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'll pick two because there are a lot. But the two of them that I work with a lot of campaigners are, number one, outreach, building the audience. So, I mean, you guys have a good audience, you know, because you built them, you know, even I think before the first campaign, I would think, and now you're kind of continuing to build it. But a lot of filmmakers, a lot of creators, they don't understand the marketing part. It's like, it's almost, at least in the States, it's an evil word, marketing. And it's sad because I thought that too, you know, and now I love marketing as long as it's a human kind of marketing. If you're a business, marketing a business kind of sucks. But if it's you know, human beings, I've got a passionate project, and you put that across, you can get people more interested in it. So marketing, and I'm trying to figure out a better term, but I just really call it outreach or person-to-person connection, because that's really what it's about. That's the hardest thing to get. And the reason it's hard is because we all want to believe that the only thing that matters is the story that we want to tell. And it's very important. But there's so many stories in the world, there's so many, that now they're looking at us, the creators, and now we have to give them more of a reason to contribute or to look at our comic book or a film. So it's evolution. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is setting the proper goal for a project. This is something that is becoming more difficult for people every year because they look at the big campaigns and they see $1 million raised, they see $100,000 raised, and they're saying, oh, I can do that too. And they can, but we have to look at how those other people raised $1 million or $100,000, and chances are we haven't put in the work that they have put in for years and years and years. So we may not right now be able to raise $100,000, but if we crowdfund for 5 years or we put stuff out for 5 or 10 years, then we can, because we'll be building a big enough audience to get us that kind of leverage to be able to raise those bigger amounts. So the part of my job that I'm not a big fan of Actually, I love every part of my job, to be honest. But the part that hurts me a little bit is when I see a creator wanting to raise $100,000, and then I go to their Facebook and Twitter and I see that they only have 500 followers, and I'm like, probably not going to raise $100,000. So then I got to talk to them about how much do they need, how much do they need to move things forward, and then I can bring them down to a level where they can hit it and then surpass it. That's my motto. Hit a small goal, surpass it, raise even more, and that's what 9 out of 10 times happens. It's hard because everybody wants to raise the big amounts, but we don't realize what it takes. I didn't even realize what it takes until I started working here for years. So.
A very good question. I mean, this is something that we repeat continuously because it's not easy, especially the part from the point of view of marketing, create the audience, try to set up the goals in a way that all the people can find something suitable, and also define the goal of your crowdfunding. I mean, if you are, as you said, if you have just 100 people following you, it's not possible to reach very big goals, but you can find some target, maybe a starting point to start your project. I mean, for example, printing the first page, I don't know, or starting your movie or your opera.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of stuff that's it's very hard because I know that there are hard costs with some projects, but I'm an independent filmmaker. I can create something from absolutely nothing, and I have that mindset. I'm learning that a lot of people don't have that mindset anymore, and I'm very disheartened by this because I've made movies for $25,000, and people who watch them, they swear that they cost $100,000. Said absolutely not. I'm not going to spend $100,000 on a 25-minute short film. I will pay $25,000 for it. You know, and I go around. I find different ways to do things and still get a decent movie. Have I made fantastic films? Probably not. But I've made over 12 films, and the last 5 have been at festivals. They've won awards. So apparently, I did create stuff from nothing. But we're losing that as a society of this like guerrilla. At least again in America, we're losing this a little bit because crowdfunding makes it seem like we can get those big amounts, and if we can't get the goal we want, then we won't make our movie or our comic.
Yeah, of course.
But it's too much. Sorry if I'm talking too much.
Don't worry, ok, I will try to translate everything from the beginning. Quindi John ha detto che le 2 difficoltà principali sono la prima di tutto il marketing, ossia riuscire a creare un pubblico, un audience, sulla quale poi riuscire a costruire la campagna di crowdfunding e quindi presentare i vari goal uno per uno e mostrare tutto quanto. Il secondo problema grosso è riuscire a strutturare la campagna crowdfunding. Spesso e volentieri le persone non sono in grado di capire qual è il loro potenziale e sbagliano completamente la progettazione. Lui ha fatto l'esempio dicendo: se voi avete 100 follower non potete chiedere migliaia e migliaia di euro, dovete avere più o meno un'idea. L'obiettivo non deve essere quello di fare i soldi, ma bensì di quello di far partire la vostra attività, quindi far creare, darvi la possibilità economica di far partire il vostro progetto consapevoli di quali sono i vostri limiti. Poi di volta in volta uno può decidere di crescere man mano con la propria attività. E lui portava l'esempio di se stesso. Lui è un filmmaker, non ha mai fatto un film pieno con tanti fondi, ma è riuscito a fare 12 film e alcuni di questi film sono andati anche a partecipare a concorsi. Quindi l'obiettivo non è tanto guadagnare soldi, ma trovare quei fondi necessari che ti permettono di far partire la tua attività. Ok. Altre domande?
Ma una domanda che volevo porre io era se nel corso di questi anni il crowdfunding come strumento è cambiato o è cambiato il pubblico nei confronti del crowdfunding o viceversa o entrambi.
Okay, Emanuele is asking, in this year and the last year, how the crowdfunding changes and how the people changes in front of the crowdfunding. I mean, there was some changes in the crowdfunding or in the people using the crowdfunding, creators and funders.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Like so. Yeah. It's definitely evolved. I mean, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of changes. I'll keep it short. Some of the bigger changes is obviously now there's bigger amounts of money getting raised. So we've seen, again, in film, which is what I primarily do. I mean, we've seen $5 million raised. In comics, we've definitely seen in the hundreds of thousands raised. Occasionally. But in the, again, raising $50,000 for a comic book project is a somewhat regular thing nowadays. When I remember I worked on a campaign for the middleman, and that became like one of the like, it was like I would say a celebrity campaign, I would say, because Javier Grillo Marxwatch was he's got some fame from Lost and all that stuff, but that became one of the first ones there, and so more money is getting raised on a regular basis. That's one change. Another change is strategy is playing a role. If you don't strategize your campaign for the month to 2 months you're running it, it gets a little bit difficult to sustain the success. You're going to hit a certain wall, and then things are going to kind of start going down, and they're not going to be able to get back up. So strategies, and that's my job, again, which is good. As long as strategies here, I'm going to be working and doing things. Two other things. The one thing is the audience or the crowd has gotten very savvy to crowdfunding. They understand. So something that today crowdfunders really have to do is tell us why. 5 years ago, they didn't have to do that. The fact that they ran a campaign, that was enough to make me say, or make somebody say, I'll give money to that. Today, we all have 10 friends that are crowdfunding, and we still only have $50 we can give. So who do we give it to? That's the question. We're going to give it to the person who can tell us a good reason why. The story is part of it. Our story is the other part of it. So again, you have to have two. I wrote this in my book because I rewrote my book, and now I say you have to have two stories, not just one. You got to have your story and your film story, and you have to address the question of why. Why should we give you my money instead of somebody else? That's a big one. That was one that even me, I figured people would understand more, but they've gotten savvy where they are looking, they're reading those campaigns. They're doing the research into the people running the campaigns now. Because if they're going to give $150, they want to make sure they're going to get what they're paying for, that they're not going to run off with the money, that kind of stuff. So 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. And then one last change, I would say. I mean, in the States, it's still, the evolution is still coming to fruition. But now the next evolution of crowdfunding is equity crowdfunding, which is offering, a percentage of what you make on the project. I'm very open to telling people that I do not agree with this, because I think it's an evolution, yes, but it's the end of the revolution of crowdfunding. Because once you start paying into a campaign for money, for a return on the investment, it's business as usual. It's Hollywood. It's the comics industry. There's nothing revolutionary about it. The difference is you'll be able to raise more money. You'll be able to raise millions of dollars easily because you'll have real investors. But you're gonna, with that comes the possibility of losing the creative freedom, the creative control. And right now, I don't think creators yet are, they're not strong enough yet to turn down a check for $1 million in exchange for the full creative control going to the person paying that $1 million. They're not strong enough to say no to that. And that's a sad thing, because if they were, then I think the next evolution of crowdfunding is going to be completely revolutionary, because it still is a bond between the crowdfunder, the creator, and the audience. And there just happens to be a little extra incentive, like you'll get 2% of whatever we make when we start selling this thing in the real market. So that's a change that hasn't happened at Indiegogo yet. We're looking at it. We're not sure what we're doing, but it is something that is going to happen eventually. By I think May, there are going to be platforms playing around with this idea in the States. It's been around for years. In the UK, it's totally, they do it all the time. Equity crowdfunding is a normal thing. I've looked at it. I just don't think anybody's doing it right yet. They haven't figured it out, because they're thinking too much about the money and not enough about the crowd.
Yeah, also in Italy there is Hello for equity crowdfunding currently. So we are experiencing, but with not there was not so success about this kind of approach, because it's very complicated. I totally agree with you. It's very important to be free in your creation, and when you start to have some kind of royalties or revenue, it's totally different. It's not more a creation. It's just a business. You are creating a company, not a product.
Yes, absolutely.
Non so se Manu ha capito tutto. Cerco di fare un riassunto totale, perché ha parlato John.
Sì.
Magari non conosce l'inglese.
Sì. Allora, alla domanda di Emanuele, che cosa è cambiato nelle persone e nel pubblico nel crowdfunding, John ha risposto una bella risposta molto lunga, molto interessante. Ha detto praticamente che è cambiato innanzitutto il modo in cui il pubblico si approccia al crowdfunding. Adesso fa più ricerche, controlla, legge le storie, ed è importante il perché la persona fa il crowdfunding, perché deve dare i soldi a una persona rispetto agli altri, e quindi le persone sono diventate molto più sagge nei confronti del crowdfunding, e quindi sono molto più accurate nelle scelte. Ha aumentato il numero di soldi che girano nel crowdfunding, questo in maniera abbastanza importante. E poi l'ultima cosa che ha detto è che il crowdfunding si sta evolvendo. Negli Stati Uniti stanno iniziando a fare l'equity crowdfunding, che consiste nel cedere una quota della propria attività in cambio di una percentuale di revenue di soldi. Quindi praticamente voi prendete una percentuale della mia attività, mi date i soldi, e poi se io guadagno qualcosa, quella percentuale ve la ritorno indietro. È un po' come se fosse un investitore.
Degli azionisti.
Degli azionisti, esatto. Però il problema è che in questo modo John dice che lui diceva che è molto contrario a questa cosa, perché in questo modo il creatore perde completamente la libertà sulla propria opera, perché si lega talmente tanto al proprio pubblico che poi a quel punto diventa più un business, non è più un'arte, una creazione, qualcosa di creativo, di libero, diventa più una cosa legata al denaro puro. E su questo sono abbastanza d'accordo, ed è uno dei motivi per cui il crowdfunding non funziona in questa direzione qui.
Certo.
Ci sono altre domande?
Dalla chat no.
Okay, I have a question. Currently, I observed that in the crowdfunding campaign, you can find a lot of campaign about technologies and games, video games, and I mean, from the point of view of comparison, I mean, I see that the crowdfunding platform are investing a lot of time in promoting the technologies and also the video game, the tablet. For example, the cards game. They are very there's a lot of promotion about this.
Yeah.
And I see that there is a very few space for creative project. I mean, for example, movies or short movies or comics or theater. For example, the theater is completely. It's very rare to find an advertising about a theater play or something.
Right.
I mean, from the point of view of Indiegogo and from your point of view, maybe you can discuss about you can say about your point and not Indiegogo, the company. I mean, do you think that it's more important to give more space to project that does not have a big revenue, but they have a big content of creation? I mean, they are very creative, but not very with a lot of money, or it's important to have both an equilibrium between the two projects, or invest everything in technologies and video game? I mean, what is your position in this? Because I see a lot of there is not an equilibrium between the two stuff. There is most of the crowdfunding campaign published promoted are about the technologies in this moment.
Right. No, and I agree. So I can give you like both, you know, the Indiegogo perspective of things, and also my personal opinion as a person who thinks about this quite a bit, and a person who's not a big fan of tech campaigns. I'm not a big fan of technology, anything. I mean, except I think my iPhone is like the top technology I need, and that's it. All this other stuff, you know, technology products that I see tend to solve what I call first world problems, not real problems. And that's just, again, personal opinion on that. But the Indiegogo side of things, it's, you know, platforms like Indiegogo and all the rest exist to do one thing, and that's to give everybody an opportunity to get the money they need to create their dreams. That's kind of what sold me on working at Indiegogo specifically, but that's also even long before I got a chance to work here. That's what sold me on this whole idea of crowdfunding, that I can go with my idea as just nobody and get my project funded. You know, as long as I could create a cool video, offer some really personal incentives, I could do that. That's what I thought, and I was proven correct. So, you know, Indiegogo tries to help. Indiegogo focuses on the idea of the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is not just a business owner. Like I have my own word called entrepreneur, which is a creator who treats their creative projects the way they would treat a business, which is basically, I want this thing to sustain itself. So that's kind of Indiegogo's perspective, and that's what they do. They what we call democratizing fundraising. The focus in tech, because there are a lot of tech projects, that is the top seller of all crowdfunding platforms right now. Anything technology based, mainly because we're living in this renaissance of where you can have an idea for a product. It could be the silliest thing in the world, but if you find that audience, you can easily make $100,000 on it because it's a physical item. The reason film and other creative projects don't get the airtime of promotion a lot of times is because they're smaller. They're more based on passion. You're not banking on this is going to be a great comic book or that's going to be a fantastic film. You're really basing it on, are these people going to be able to do it? Who are these people? You look into the people behind these projects, whereas the technology projects, all you care about is buying the product. So it's an easy sell, it's an easy purchase. And if you can buy it ahead of time, it's even better. There's that added incentive. So that's the reason. But like if you look at just in general, historically, technology is usually number one in projects that get funded, followed normally by film. So film is the other thing. Why? Simple. Movies are the biggest thing that anybody does. Everybody watches movies. Not everybody goes to the theater. Not everybody goes to pick up a comic book. Further less people go out to a photography exhibit to look at some artist's new photographs. That's not the fault of crowdfunding. That's the fault of the artists at that point, because they have not put out their own stuff enough to get people to do these things. Because I've worked on all these kinds of projects. The theater projects are difficult ones, you know, and I love theater. I come from a theater background, you know, but man, it's hard to get those funded because, number one, if it's very localized in that sense, because you can't, 9 out of 10 times, you can't offer a viewing of the show because there's rules that won't allow it in the States. So you know, if you're not living in New York City, you're not going to be able to go to this play, which means you're limiting your audience to one city versus the world. You know, comic books, they don't have that problem because comics is a universal language. Film is a universal language. So those tend to do better than photography or theater. And art projects just in general are very difficult because art is still, you know, art is primarily funded by big institutions and
yeah. My observation is because I have a PhD, so my background is more scientific. And what I can notice is that usually if you have a technology project, you can find very easily the funds for your project. I mean, for example, the two capitalist projects and everything. And I was surprised to see a crowdfunding campaign of project already funded by venture capitalists or business angels, everything.
Interesting.
And they use crowdfunding just for marketing. I see this kind of differences between the creative project and the technology project. Usually the creative project has the goals to create something new and to have something sustainable that can create for you something new, your creation. Instead, the technology is just for promotion. And so this is I don't like so much this kind of behavior, but I agree with you, is the problem of the audience. And so the crowdfunding is totally free. The goal of crowdfunding is to make your idea real, make it happen, as written in Indiegogo. So
yeah.
I totally agree with you. Okay, I will try to translate, sorry. So come dicevo, John diceva che è un problema degli utenti, nel senso che l'obiettivo del crowdfunding è darti la possibilità di creare la tua idea e farla diventare vera, quindi non è possibile dare una limitazione su questo tipo di idea. E poi il fatto che ci siano molti progetti tecnologici più in vista rispetto ai progetti tipo fumetto, teatro e così via, è dovuto principalmente al fatto che sono molto più piccoli, hanno un pubblico molto più piccolo e quindi hanno dei finanziamenti molto più piccoli rispetto alla tecnologia, al film e così via. Questo ho riassunto, I summarized everything.
Ma quindi, scusa Davide, quindi mi viene da sottolineare che sia più facile investire sui prodotti più che sulla cultura, fra virgolette, no? Cioè,
Emanuele is asking, so this is the consequence of this is that it's easier to invest in the product, in technologies, than in culture.
You could take it that way, yeah. But I think the beauty of it, and I'm always, you know, I'm Mr. Naive some days, or Mr. Overly hopeful about human race.
No, but the optimist, I like people that are
eternal optimist. I do think that it democratizes it to such an extent that the doors are open for us to see whatever, because I may, as a person, go to a campaign site for a product and invest in that, but that might open me up to look at some other things, you know, to look at projects that I might not otherwise check out. It's happened to me. I mean, I bought my first technology product the other day, and I thought, never will I do this, because I've never seen anything I care about, you know. So it's interesting. But I think the idea is the doors get opened up, and it becomes up to us as the crowd. So the crowd, the audience, the consumers get empowered to do whatever they want, because there are so many options. I mean, is it better to invest in? I mean, technically, no. I would say no at this rate, because crowdfunding isn't investing, right? I mean, Facebook, everybody was mad at Facebook because of the Oculus Rift. Probably shouldn't be talking about a Kickstarter campaign, but you know, they got mad at the Oculus Rift because that sold for $2 million, you know, and they're like, oh, but we funded this thing, and we don't get any of that Facebook money, because that's not what it was about. You funded an idea to make it happen. That Facebook was an awesome idea too, and they bought it. They have the money to fund it. So that's the thing. It opens those doors. It allows people to just fund whatever they want and discover new things that they may not have known. So that's why I think it's a good thing. But I would never invest in tech on a crowdfunding platform because you're not going to make any money. And for me with technology, it is about, if I'm going to put money into it, like big money, I want more than just the item. I want money on the back end, which will be possible soon. But with a film, it is really altruistic. You're going to get the movie, you're going to get the comic book, you're going to get the perk, but you're still going to, there's a sense of accomplishment that you as an audience member actually helped the process.
Maybe it's also because the marketing of technology, it's maybe easier than cultural promotion, because there are few people that go to the theater or cinema or read comic book, and instead there is a lot of people with the last iPhone or the last Samsung phone that say, okay, this is very nice, I like it.
Yeah, and with that, it's that whole idea of, oh man, I forgot what I was going to say. Give me a second. Yeah, it's like, it's definitely, I would say the marketing is easier, but it's also more expensive.
Yes.
Because the people who run those technology campaigns, they're spending a lot of money to market. And that's one of the other changes in the industry, too. There are companies that run campaigns now, and they make a good amount of money doing it because they do all the work. So when you see these $1 million tech campaigns, there's usually an entire agency that's running them and bringing and spending thousands and thousands of dollars to market. And that's why they're able to bring in that money. Whereas film, comic books, let's be honest, we don't have that money. If we did, we'd be putting it into making the product. So there's a very...
If I have this kind of money, I would put in the product, not in marketing, for sure.
I
don't like that Zuckerberg uses my money for promotion.
Exactly.
Ok, non so se hai capito tutto Manu, ma se vuoi cerco di tradurre anche per tutti. Allora, lui diceva che non è tanto una questione di essere più semplice investire nel prodotto, ma è semplicemente un fatto che il prodotto tecnologico ha il tuo oggetto molto carino, fan carino, e quindi lo compri più facilmente rispetto a un prodotto di tipo culturale.
Certo.
Quello che diceva lui, la cosa bella è che tu hai la possibilità di scoprire più prodotti, non c'è un limite in questo. E poi si diceva del fatto che è più facile fare promozione di prodotti tecnologici rispetto a prodotti culturali, e lui faceva notare che di solito dietro i prodotti tecnologici che fanno milioni e milioni di euro ci sono addirittura delle agenzie che spendono migliaia cioè 2.000, 3.000 euro, quello che è un sacco di soldi proprio in promozione. E lui diceva, un progetto culturale come un fumetto o un film, se avesse quei soldi lì li metterebbe nel prodotto, non li metterebbe in promozione.
Certo.
Ok, ci sono domande di qualcun altro?
No, chat no.
Chiederti il consiglio
definitivo.
I have another question. We can have the last question after. I mean, you say that it's very important to say why you are doing crowdfunding. And in my opinion, it's very important also to trust the creator. So to be honest with your audience, don't try to trick the audience with something that is not clear or something that is not what you promised. So, for example, what would happen to us with Lumina is that we proposed a list of perks, very different perks, but we promise something. So, for example, we say, okay, you will have the book with your commission, custom commission, and so Linda drew a lot of commissions for Lumina. I want to say, it's very important to be honest. I mean, what do you think? It's true. I mean, there is a lot of history about the crowdfunding campaign that finished with nothing. they take money and they steal from somewhere, and this is a problem. So what is your experience with this? And so what is your advice to the people?
Well, I definitely, you said it. I mean, you want to be honest up front. You want to be authentic with your audience. You know, being you. You're promising them a piece of art. You're promising them a product. So if you're asking for money, you need to deliver it. It's just that's as basic as business gets for a creator. Promising them this, you're going to give them it. That's it. I think any campaign, I've never experienced a campaign that's kind of like taking the money and ran. But I have heard about them. And that's the reason the audience, like I said before, the audience has gotten savvy to this. So they're doing the research now. So now we have to be held more accountable to our audience because they're not stupid. And they never were. But 5 years ago, when crowdfunding was still very new, the audience didn't see anything. They were like, what is it? You know, oh, let me try it. And a lot of people got burned. They got screwed over because the crowdfunders weren't professional because it was so new. 5 years later, though, it's everybody understands that if you don't deliver what you promise, if you try to come back, you will never be able to get funding from the crowd again because they're going to remember. And they're going to remember because they're going to write about you, and they're going to tweet about you, and they're going to put it all over the world that you did not fulfill your promise. You stole our money. That fear, that transparency is what makes crowdfunding work. And it's not so much fear, I said that wrong, but it is the fear, to be honest. Nobody wants to look bad, so you're going to make sure you're going to do it. Now, if you're trying to raise money, but you know you can't, you know you need $40,000, but you're doing an Indiegogo flexible campaign and you only raise $25, well, you have two choices. One, you refund everybody before the campaign ends, or two, you work with $20,000 and you move the project forward somehow. But the key thing here is let your audience know what you're doing. Because the minute you give $10 or $10,000, those audience members deserve to know everything that you know when you know it, because they're not your audience anymore, they're your team. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't realize yet, that the minute we give, we are part of it.
I agree with you, totally. Okay, so I can translate. So, I mean, John diceva, io gli ho fatto la domanda dicendo quanto è importante essere onesti col pubblico, perché come diceva lui è importante creare un rapporto di fiducia col proprio pubblico, perché in questo momento il crowdfunding è diventato molto più selettivo, il pubblico è molto più preciso. E lui raccontava che fare il crowdfunding è proprio una questione di onestà, non si possono prendere i soldi e scappare via, ma non soltanto. Se tu prometti qualcosa in crowdfunding poi devi rispettarlo il meglio possibile, e quando una persona ti dà soldi da 10 a $100 devi fargli vedere quello che stai facendo passo passo, perché non è più un cliente, diventa parte del team, è come se facesse parte del tuo team creativo e ti sta dando una mano a creare il progetto, non è più semplicemente una persona che usufruisce di un servizio.
Certo.
Okay, I think it's time for the last question, because it's already 1 hour, and so Manu, Linda?
No, dai, domande. Linda vuole sapere il consiglio definitivo per portare a termine una campagna di crowdfunding, ma anche in termini di come sostenerla psicologicamente, cioè il consiglio proprio per sostenere fisicamente e psicologicamente una campagna.
Okay, this is the last question. It's very complicated. The question is, how can you sustain the campaign from the point of view of psychology and and your physical? Because it's very stressful to observe your campaign that is going very slowly. Because usually after the first week, after 2 weeks, you have a little stop of your people, and then you have a grow up at the end. So how can you manage this kind of behavior in a crowdfunding campaign from the point of view of psychology?
From the point of view of psychology, okay, that's a great question. So what do people want psychologically, right? They want to belong, right? That's what we want. We want love. We want, you know, whatever. But really, like, translate all that. We want to belong to something. So in terms of a campaign now, you want to make people feel like they belong to it, like they're a part of it. So the things that I would do if I were running campaigns, the things I've done, and it's difficult because it's a lot of work. But the things I would do is, while I am working with bringing in my audience that I already have, I would be getting them in at the beginning, the first week of the campaign. That would be my strategy. Bring in everybody I know, bring in the fans that funded the last campaign if there was, and then I would be spending a couple of hours a day finding new people to introduce the comic to, or introduce my film to, or introduce myself to. Start talking to them, one by one. It's so much work, one by one, and that's part of that day, talking to them. This way, when you're done after that first week and a half, now these other people that you just started talking to, they know you a bit. You've given them time. They've invested their time in getting to know you. So now, by the second week, you can actually ask them to check out your campaign. You can't ask them that on day one when you meet them. That's just rude. You got to build up that relationship, and that's got to be at the same time as you're getting the money in, because when those new people see your campaign, if they see that you've only raised $20 bucks out of $50,000, psychologically they're not going to contribute because you're not winning, you're losing to their mind. Even though it's a start, but if you have $25,000 out of 50, and I see it as a stranger, I'm going to check it out because I'm going to belong if I choose to contribute to a winning campaign, or one that's on the way to win if I help out. And that's the psychology, and that's where the strategy comes in. That's a strategy that I tell people to do all the time. Launch to your general people that you know. Start bringing in your Facebook fans, your Twitter followers, one by one if you have to, but at the same time, going around and meeting new people, new comic book fans, new film fans, and talking to them. That's what they want. They want to see that you're looking at them only, that you're caring about what they're talking about, that you're giving them value, that you're adding to their conversations. And then, later on, when you ask them for a contribution or to check out your campaign, they will be more inclined to do so long as you have a good amount of funding in the bank already. So that's kind of what I do to kill what I call the lull, the quiet time.
It's a good strategy. From the strategies of Indiegogo, I say, okay, this is a good strategy. Okay, I think that we can finish here the live. There are no other questions. I want to say thank you to John for coming here to this live. It was a very nice chat with him.
Oh, cool.
And, we found a lot of common points, and I hope one day to invite him in Italy, because there is a very big fair here in Comic Book, and there with a lot of people, and we can discuss with a lot of the people. It's very interesting.
Hey, I'm always looking for a reason. That's a big...
Manuel, Linda, want to say something?
No, grazie. Non parliamo inglese, Davide.
Ok. They say, but just say something.
Possiamo dire qualcosa, ma in altre lingue, tranne l'inglese.
Ok, they don't speak English, sorry John.
No,
Io
no,
guardo
sure.
qualsiasi lingua tranne l'inglese, guarda,
They speak any kind of languages, but not English.
Okay, you know what? They're better off. Tell them that. They're better off. English is overrated.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, really, to me too. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to all the audience. Not so much, I'm very sorry for the technical problem, but the next time will be better, I hope. Okay, thank you very much.
Definitely. And let's be in touch soon about the campaign.
Yes, of course.
Good. Take care, guys.
Thank you, John. Bye.
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 Ciao,
Samuele.
John.
Ciao.
Ciao.